Antoinette Braybrook, who is about to speak to us, set up the Aboriginal Family Violence Prevention and Legal Service in Victoria in the early 2000s. Meanwhile, this organisation has grown now to 4 offices across Victoria with over a staff of over 30. Antoinette won Law Institute of Victoria's Access to Justice Awards last year. Over 100 Sisters' Day Out workshops have helped connect with over 7,000 attendees, where aside from being pampered, I didn't write this, I just learnt it, where aside from being pampered, which is nice, they have access to family law experts and counsellors. These workshops also help raise awareness of the issues and support available to those experiencing domestic violence. FVPLS, which is the acronym, Victoria, advocates for improvements in the way the community, the legal system and authorities respond to and address family violence and sexual assault. Antoinette represents FVPLS Victoria on the Aboriginal Justice Forum and the Indigenous Family Violence Partnership Forum. And I ask her now to tell us about the problems she deals with and the work she does. Thank you.
I must begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that we're gathering on today and pay my respects to the elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge all of my Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander brothers and sisters here in the room, and also if there are any elders present. Can I also acknowledge Raylene Harradine, the CEO of Bendigo Aboriginal District Cooperative, and I'd also like to pay a special acknowledgement to Dan Dwyer, who was my lecturer at Deakin, but it was that long ago he probably wouldn't remember. That was a joke. He's very old. I was born here in Victoria on Wurundjeri country, and my grandfather and mother's line is through Kuku Yalangi in far north Queensland. And I have been the CEO of the Aboriginal Family Violence Prevention and Legal Service in Victoria here for 14 years. I also hold the elected position of National Convener of the National Family Violence Prevention and Legal Services Forum, and I've held that for about 3 years. Our organisation is community controlled. We're a specialist service working exclusively with Aboriginal victims, survivors of family violence. We provide a broad range of services, including legal assistance, support, counselling, early intervention, prevention, and community education and awareness programs. We are not gender exclusive, but 93% of our clients in Victoria are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women. Today, I've been asked to talk about celebrating and safeguarding cultural identity. In order to do this, I will touch on a number of issues specifically relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women's experiences and interactions with the justice system and the system more broadly. It's always important for me to start with the facts so we understand exactly the stark reality of the lives of many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women today. In Victoria, the Royal Commission into Family Violence reported that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women are about 45 times more likely to suffer family violence than other women. The Royal Commission also reported that where violence occurs, our women are 25 times more likely to be killed or injured because of family violence than other women. Nationally, we are 34 times more likely to be hospitalised for family violence, and we are 10 times more likely to die from a violent assault than other women. We remain the most legally disadvantaged group in Australia, and we are the fastest growing prison population in this country today. Almost 90% of our sisters in prison are victims of family violence, and 80% are mothers. We make up 2% of the Australian population, but 34% of the prison population. Family violence is a key contributor to the removal of our children. Family violence is the greatest reason why Aboriginal women seek homelessness accommodation services. But so many women tell us in our communities that they choose violence over homelessness. And nationally, it is estimated that 90% of violence against our women goes unreported. And still, the statistics and facts are overwhelming and paint a devastating picture. All of these facts point to an epidemic, a national crisis. This is a national emergency. They point to a massive and continued failure by our country. Unless we all take a stronger stand to demand change, we should all hang our heads in shame. It's very important for me to tell you that through the work we do nationally, our women are hurt by and murdered by men from many different cultures and backgrounds. So we need to stop thinking about this as just another Aboriginal problem. It's important that we have Aboriginal community-led approaches, and it is important that our men are included in the solutions. It's important to acknowledge the gendered nature of violence against all women. Equally, we must acknowledge its gendered nature when it comes to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women. It is important to understand that the experiences of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women escaping family violence are different to the experiences of non-Aboriginal women. Our identity, our Aboriginality, often plays a big part in the way the system and society responds to us and treats us. Historically, the legal and justice system has been used as a tool of oppression against our people. Women are scared to report violence for fear of removal of their children. Women fear they won't be believed. They fear their safety will be further compromised because they will be exposed and not protected. Our women fear that they will be judged because of their Aboriginality. Poor and inappropriate police responses are a major barrier for our women reporting violence. There are some true champions in the police force, but when it comes to responding to family violence against our women, all it takes is one bad response for that to stop other women in our communities reporting. Women we work with tell us many stories of their experiences when they get up the courage to report the violence. Shockingly, one sister told us when she did get up that courage to report a breach of an intervention order, the police officer told her that because it was just a punch in the head this time and he didn't lay the boots in like last time, he seems to be getting better. Perhaps it will make him worse if you report the breach. Go home and just see how things go. Other sisters have been presented with outstanding warrants when they have got up the courage to report. When it comes to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women's experiences of the courts in respect of child protection and family law matters, we see firsthand the lack of cultural awareness and sensitivity by some judicial officers when making decisions about Aboriginal children. It's not okay for a child to maintain their connection to culture by visiting an Aboriginal organisation or attending a NAIDOC event in another state or on someone else's country. Our cultural rights are never negotiable. Keeping culture strong requires so much more than just visiting an event or an organisation. The child protection system, you've heard Andrew talk in detail about his work in Task Force 1000. Coming from our frontline experience, we see the pressure the child protection system places on our women to leave the family home, otherwise risk losing their children. We also see the community and family pressure on her to stay in the relationship and do what it takes to make it work for the kids' sake. We know of women who have left but still have their children removed because the location of their accommodation was in a bad area, or there were too many people living in the house, and this was because a decision made by the worker. We know of women who cannot leave because they do not have anywhere else to go. We have some great partnerships with mainstream organisations, and many of them we work well with. We know of situations where women have sought out help from a mainstream organisation only to be told that there's an Aboriginal organisation down the road. We do ask mainstream organisations to try to refer to Aboriginal organisations because our women are less likely to disclose violence to them, but there is a difference between a referral and not providing an appropriate service, and we do see this a lot. Again, with some of the feedback we get about mainstream services, women tell us they feel that they have been judged or not believed. I'd like now to touch briefly on some of the criminal justice responses our women experience. As I said earlier, our women are the fastest growing prison population. We are doing some work in the prison with the women, and many of the cases we are handling are child protection or victims of crime. It's very sad to see that so many of our women in the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre are mothers. It's very sad to see so many in that centre. It's sad to know that so many of our women in prison are there for crimes that relate directly to homelessness and poverty. It's sad to know that many are sitting on remand for long periods of time, sometimes 2 years, and by the time they are sentenced, they've done more than they should have served. There needs to be a greater investment in our communities to keep our men and women out of prison. I once read somewhere that the imprisonment rates for our people were going so high that soon there will be so many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children with both parents in prison. In 2002, the then Social Justice Commissioner Tom Calma noted that it was profoundly distressing that the incarceration rates for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women was higher than men and rising at a far faster rate. And that in the years since the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, Aboriginal women have been rendered invisible to policy makers. That was true then, and it is still true today. 25 years on after that Royal Commission, our women are still invisible. Greater investment is needed into frontline Aboriginal community control organisations for Aboriginal women. Funding must be prioritised for locally owned and driven solutions and not just go to putting more police in communities, as we saw with the Women's Safety Package. Aboriginal women's voices must be heard. There must be Aboriginal women from the grassroots with frontline expertise involved in influencing and shaping policy. In finishing up, I just want to leave you with some commentary from a judge back in 2010 when he was sentencing an Aboriginal woman for the stabbing of her partner. In sentencing Melissa, he said, "Your life has been a tragedy, nothing less than a tragedy. You seem to have been a consistent victim of domestic abuse. You have been stabbed in the chest. You have been stabbed everywhere else with a screwdriver. You have been assaulted with a hammer. You have been abducted and beaten with a stock whip on every regular basis by a man who abducted you. You had a star picket crashed into your hand, and every time you escaped from this man, he tracked you down and took you back. You have scars all over your body from the various injuries inflicted upon you by men over these years. As a country, as a society, we should be thoroughly ashamed of ourselves that you have neglected and been abused in the manner that you have been. It is exceedingly distressing that in this country, where we pride ourselves on quality, tolerance, fairness, you could be so neglected and abused, and yet we, as a society, did nothing to stop it. We have failed many women like Melissa and like Lynette Daly, whose tragic story was shown on Four Corners just a couple of weeks ago, and Mrs. Dew, and like Andrea Pickett, who was stabbed to death by her estranged husband, and the many other women, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women, that we do not hear about. I want to thank the organisers for inviting me to speak here today. It is indeed a great honour to speak on behalf of the many women we work for and whose courage, strength and resilience, despite these overwhelming odds, is more than inspirational. Thank you.